been President Trump's fundamental goal is to reduce the trade deficit and increase trade. So this was the first step, the framework by which we will then approach and discuss growing trade. But first we had to get sort of the negativity out, and now we can go forward to try to do positive trade, growing trade, and beneficial to both China and to the United States of America.
Do you feel confident to make agreements before the 12th of August?
Can you repeat that again?
Do you feel confident to make any agreement with China before the 12th of August?
Before the deadline?
Well, we know that they're motivated. Our president is motivated. We're moving as quickly as we can, so we would very much like to find an agreement that makes sense for both countries. The relationship is complex. There are challenges that can't be eliminated in a couple of months, of course, but there are things we potentially could do. So I just think we feel positive about engaging with the Chinese, understanding the real challenges we've had for many years, and some will endure.
So if there's no movement, then would tariffs go back? Extend to the deadline?
Well, listen, that's going to be up to the president, right? I mean, that's all of this is up to the president. He's been asked directly about this sometimes, and he says something like, "We'll see." So I'm not going to say more than that.
The restrictions on chips like the H20 from NVIDIA, will they ever be on the table to lift those restrictions?
I mean, again, this conversation is about the Geneva Consensus, the Geneva Agreement, and implementing that. I mean, when it comes to export controls and all these different things, I mean, in 8 years of negotiating with the Chinese, I've never had a meeting where they didn't want to talk about export controls and that kind of thing. I mean, we're focused on the Geneva Agreement. We're focused on the calls for the president's implementing that.
Will we see more rare earth minerals coming?
We do absolutely expect that the topic of rare earth minerals and magnets with respect to the United States of America will be resolved in this framework implementation. That is a fundamental part of that. Also, there were a number of measures the United States of America put on when those rare earths were not coming. You should expect those to come off sort of, as President Trump said, in a balanced way. When they approve the licenses, then you should expect that our export implementation will come down as well.
What makes this meeting different than Geneva?
Is that a time frame?
What was asked outside Geneva?
Is there a time frame?
Well, the difference between this meeting and Geneva is Geneva set the framework, but for whatever reason, it just wasn't happening. It was going too slowly, too painfully, and so we put that on the table. But most importantly, you had President Trump and President Xi on the phone together, and they gave sort of the fundamental foundation on which we were able to reach agreement. Without those two leaders, it was very difficult, but with the two leaders talking, I think we both sides had that strong push to let's get this done. That's why we stayed at it so late in the day, that we never stopped. We started early, we ended late. You have to get things done if you're working for President Trump, and I'm sure they felt they had to get it done because they were working for President Xi.
Are they going to have another phone call anytime soon?
Oh, you'd have to ask them. That's between them.
Did they seem motivated? Did the Chinese seem motivated to come to some sort of agreement?
Oh, we're here. What time are we talking to you? I mean, obviously it's 11 and a half hours, 12 hours since we got together, right, this morning. More, right?
Well,
More.
When was the call with the president? It's like Thursday morning, and it's
right.
And it's
Thursday.
Monday,
Thursday,
right? And we did on
I mean, we got together at 10 this morning.
Obviously,
it's almost midnight, so it's 14 hours of being together.
Issued in writing after the talks in London.
Well, we have an agreement. We have the Geneva Agreement. Right now, we've agreed on a framework to implement that, right? We have an agreement already.
What does that framework look like?
When do we get to see the framework?
Oh, well, I mean, this is, we have the Geneva Agreement. That's what we're keying off of. And we're working together very closely with them to make sure that the implementation goes forward speedily.
Geneva was 4 weeks ago. How do you avoid having this situation happen again?
Well, I think the difference this time is you had the two presidents on the phone together, really creating the foundation that is the purpose that this framework is built upon. So it was the combination of Geneva's consensus coupled with the president's phone call led us to feeling actually very confident that we will work this out. Now, President Trump's got to approve it. The Chinese side has to take that back to their president. And then once that's done, we will be back on the phone together and we will then start to implement this agreement.
But do we have any breakthroughs? Any?
Well, I think we have the two largest economies in the world have reached a handshake, right, for a framework. We're going to start to implement that framework upon the approval of President Trump, and the Chinese will get the President Xi's approval, and that's the process. So once the presidents approve it, we will then seek to implement it, and it is by definition, two giant economies have lots of complex issues, but I think we pounded through all of them, and I think we've reached a framework to implement the agreements that have been reached.
Did you guys have a call with President Trump today or yesterday to brief him on the talks?
Obviously.
And
What did he
was
say?
his reaction?
What's his reaction?
Well, the motivation for the team is clear. The direction was clear. The conversations were clear. And I think the outcome, now we're going to go fly back, and we're going to go brief, the three of us are going to brief President Trump, and we'll get his take on it. And then we will start the implementation phase with our Chinese counterparts.
How many sections is this framework? I mean, what are we looking at? A big document? Is it multifaceted? Are we just talking about export controls versus minerals?
Well, the benefit was Ambassador Greer and Secretary Besson had really already done this work in Geneva a month ago. So this is really sort of making sure there's meat on the bones, the agreement is complete, the presidents are behind it. So they really already did the framework work, and this was really just getting everything ready for its implementation. And so I think, this is very consistent to where we've been, to where we're going. I think it's really beneficial to the United States of America. It's really beneficial to the Chinese and the China economy, and I think we will grow from here. We will implement, and then we will seek to grow our trading between the two countries. America has, again, a large trade deficit with China that we are going to focus on, and the idea is to do it in a positive way and to grow our trade with China, which will reduce our trade deficit. But first, we wanted to get the framework launched.
Is there enforcement in this deal?
As long as Donald Trump's the president, there's going to be enforcement. Just trust me on that.
Well, that's a really good answer. I love that
Did the
answer.
trade deal come up? Purchasing agreements?
What's that? So again, listen, we're ready to have a larger conversation with the Chinese on the types of topics you've talked about, and they've telegraphed now and then the kinds of things they might be interested in. We are very focused on implementing the Geneva Agreement and the President's consensus. That's number one. When that happens, that's really going to unlock the ability to talk about more things. And again, there are some things that the Chinese and U.S. economies, they just don't fit together very well. Other things maybe they do. And there'll be a time for broader conversations on that. And we certainly, touched on that throughout these meetings, but these meetings are really accelerate implementation of Geneva contingent on the president's mutual
The
agreement.
fentanyl tariffs, though, are still in place. Is there any progress you're seeing from Beijing on fentanyl?
Well, that was a topic of discussion for specialists here, right? Each side had a specialist to talk about fentanyl. Clearly, that's a priority for our president, and frankly, for all Americans, right? This is not a partisan issue. We would expect to see progress from the Chinese on that issue in a major way.
Are you coming back to London in the future for the meetings?
We don't know.
No, but it was wonderful. Our hosts from the United Kingdom, they really provided a wonderful place for us to meet. It was easy. It was comfortable. Both sides felt very comfortable, and I think it created a great atmosphere in which to get a deal done.
Did the court case against tariffs, President Trump's tariffs, come up? Did that affect your leverage at all?
It did not.
That doesn't come up.
It did not come up at all.
Do national security issues complicate this? There were Chinese nationals that were arrested with agro-terrorism weapons or bio-weapons in the U.S. Did that cause a problem?
I mean, that didn't come up at all. I mean, all of these things listen, we're talking about geopolitics and grand strategy. Some of these things are dealt with in compartments, right? And obviously we go back, and when we say we're going to brief the president, we're also going to brief all these other people, right? National security folks, et cetera. Right? Everyone wants to know about this, and everyone's balancing everything. We didn't talk about those things here, thankfully, but obviously there are people in our government who think very serious about those things.
What's the status of the other countries you're negotiating with? July 9th.
We're just here to talk about China. Sorry.
Thanks. All right, thank you all. Thanks
Thank
for
you,
staying
everybody.
up so late waiting for us. I really appreciate it.